and look at what this is, looking at what the kind of yield you're going to get. These are two different studies that we're looking at, one on the left and one on the right. And the one on the left was from Keen and circulation of this year, and it was showing that 1.6% of the patients that were over 65 years old that were using a handheld mobile device, of those, that 1.6 patients, 98% of the patients who had undiagnosed AFib that were diagnosed through this had a CHA2DS2-VASc score of greater than 2. That mean, and the mean was 4.4. So you're looking at these patients that already have a high risk just based off of their CHA2DS2-VASc score, and when they had a handheld mobile device, you could see the increased identification of these patients for AFib. And then when you look at the other study on the other side, which was back from stroke in 2013, and these were patients that were 75 to 76 years old, and 7.4% of these patients had a CHA2DS2-VASc score greater than 2 and were using a handheld device as well too. And once these patients, 50% of them were diagnosed with AFib within 5 days of using their device. So this gives you more data. What happens with these patients, and what is your yield going to be if you're out and putting in a screening with these patients, and looking to see that they already were at high risk with their CHA2DS2-VASc score.
Wow. And I think some of the, even just regular primary care doctor's office can, while they're waiting in the waiting room, can have some sort of screening thing there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because they've got time while they're waiting to get back. What could you do because of them being out there, and even caregivers that are there with them too? What's their rate? And do they even have a healthcare provider?
Yeah, because now insurance is cutting back on how many EKGs you can do routinely on cardiology patients. So this is a quick and dirty way to see if you really need one that day when they come in.
Very good point. Very good point. And just to kind of wrap up with some of the last is that this is detection, and it's a kind of a window into your future cardiovascular and overall health when you're looking at AFib, because here's some of the potential implications that we see. We know it's an independent risk factor for stroke severity, recurrence, and mortality. These patients, are at such high risk of having their stroke. But outside of that, what else? We have 2 times increased risk of dementia and sudden cardiac death with patients for AFib. 3 times increase of having VFib, 70% to have an MI, and as we know, so many AFib patients also have heart failure, and heart failure patients have AFib, so what has come first, the chicken or the egg? But when you're looking at this, 40% of those patients are going to develop heart failure or another condition. So if you are detecting this early and you're finding this, the impact that you have on their future from all of these other potential risk factors that they have, as you can see, makes a huge impact on the patient and on the healthcare system as well too.
First, the emotional impact. You just tell a patient, "I've saved you from having AFib by this one little thing." I can't tell. You'll be grateful for life.
Oh, absolutely. And when you talk to people and they talk about having a risk of, what would they rather have, a heart attack or a stroke? And most people tell you they'd rather have a heart attack every day of the week rather than have a stroke. So I think that it's time to get some of this information, and I'm going to turn this back over to Jerry to go over some questions and get your feedback on all of this. I really have appreciated your questions and your input throughout going over these the slides that they prepared for us.
Thank you.
Yeah, Doctor, so I'd like to hear your overall thoughts and reactions to the presentation. What did you think?
I think when you look at all the slides, I believe the data part of it is truly accurate or very reflective of what the AFib burden is there. So, for instance, I always tell people, the older people get AFib, the younger people don't. The smaller hearts don't get AFib, the bigger hearts do. Like a mouse will never get AFib, but an elephant can. So as some of these slides kind of go along with that, if you're over 65, you have some risk factor. Over 75, it's higher. And that's one aspect of it. And so I think it's a good intro to the incidence of AFib, or the undiagnosed incidence of AFib, and finding a modality to capture these rhythms and capture the patient's for better care and, saving costs. I think, you're right in line with all the information. I think it's truly accurate and mirrors what we see every day, and where we're deficient in, getting these people. We still use the EKG, great, but, that takes a little bit of time. I think we should move to the electronic world to capture these patients and bring them in and do the further testing and so on and so forth. So yeah, I like it. I just think awareness. Put these slides on TV. Put it on I don't know, some of these talk shows. Oprah. And some of these other Dr. Oz and all this stuff. I think there isn't enough. Just not to digress, but. We keep talking about screening for colon cancer and breast cancer. You wouldn't believe how many people I see over 75 who never had a stress test or echocardiogram. Number one killer is heart attack and stroke. We're not screening for that. We're not advertising for that.
How do you think you would use this type of information in your current role or organization? How would you use this?
If I had an opportunity, again, I'm in a small town, so actually it's easier in a small town where we do have on and off, like teachings, what's the best word? Like meetings where the local town people will come in on a Saturday afternoon or Sunday. So I would, present this to the patients who come in, and it's not just, or the people, I should say, who come in. And it's not just them, it's their family members and so on and so forth. So I would introduce it into the locals, maybe the local university, the local, nursing homes, and, where there's a large gathering of people, even if it's at Walmart one day, just set up a booth and, have people just sit down, put your fingers, and see if we can diagnose undiagnosed AFib.
Yeah. Well, how would you summarize the main takeaway from the presentation?
You mean in just the concept we talked about, or the slides?
Thinking about the whole presentation that Margaret gave, if you were going to tell somebody, well, this is a presentation that says this, what would you say is the main thing that it's telling you?
I think the main thing it's telling you is that there is available technology out there that can diagnose AFib and or other rhythms, for that matter, that we have not fully taken captive of or taking full advantage of, and therefore there's advancement in technology and there's not as much advancement in us using the technology.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious to understand, as you were going through the presentation with Margaret, was there anything you would say was particularly new to you or not?
I guess the only new, the only new thing, but one new thing, they asked me what I think the incidence of undiagnosed AFib, and I said 15%, but you said something like 1.5% or something. So it's lower than what I thought, but I think that's also based on what patient population you have. Where I am, there's a lot of obese people with a lot of comorbid issues. So I think that undiagnosed AFib percentage may be potentially higher, or it may be just based on where you are. But that I thought was the only surprise. Because I feel like I see AFib all the time. I'm not even an electrophysiologist, and 35-40% a day I'm treating AFib.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you mentioned other numbers that you saw, and as you're going through the presentation, was there anything else that you would say, oh, I didn't really know that, or was the rest of it all something that you felt like you knew pretty well?
I wish I could look at them again. So don't capture,
we'll go through it again. We'll go through it again.
If we can just click through it, if you can.
Yeah, let's go back to the beginning, because I'm going to go all the way back, and then we'll just quickly go through that again. Because what I would like to know is anything that's new or anything that's unclear, so that I can understand any changes that we should make. So if I look here, is this clear? Anything new here in terms of the economic burden?
Okay, so all of this is new to me. Maybe because, in terms of putting dollars and cents to it, the length of stay I would have thought was less than that. But 12 days is a long week also. So I guess the cost of the major burden through Medicare and all that, I guess those numbers I've never really thought about it, just from an AFib point of view, but I can certainly believe it. We worry about patients coming in readmission for CHF. I mean, we have a lot of patients coming with readmission for AFib too, just because, the rates are not controlled. So the cost to society, I guess, is a little bit of a staggering number to me, I guess.
Okay. And then we had this slide as you're looking at this. Anything new here? Anything that could be made more clear?
No, I think this is totally accurate. I believe, this makes sense. Yep. So this one's good.
Is this what you would have already thought, or would this be?
Yeah, this is what I would already thought. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And then we had this, which showed the prevalence of AF increasing. Anything new here or anything that can be made more clear here?
No, I think it's accurate. It's good to know that almost every 5 years as you get older, I mean, your risk is going up by 2.5%, 3%, so that's good to know. I didn't know it was, I didn't know it would be that proportionate going up and with men and women respectively. So, not surprised, but information for me.
Okay, yeah. And then on this slide, showing the Medicare, Medicaid revenue.
Yeah, so this one, again, like I told you before, the cost-wise, this is huge. So for payers, whether it be private insurance and this and that, I'm sure the costs for them are pretty much the same. It always bothers me. We have a lot of great medications in cardiology, but the insurance companies will never approve it. But they'll rather let you go in the hospital and sit there for 12 days and pay for that.
Yeah. Okay. So this is clear. Anything that needs to be made more clear in this slide or not?
I guess the only thing about, I don't do billing, so you'll have to forgive me, but it seems to be quite a bit discrepancy in the graphs of Medicaid versus Medicare, but that could be for another reason that I'm not well versed with how Medicare and Medicaid works. I would have thought that both the curves would have kind of mirrored each other, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I always wonder on something like this, how would you what's the conclusion from this slide? If you were going to say, this is telling me, what's it really saying? There's a huge cost. Do we have, this may sound like a stupid question, do we have more people on Medicare than Medicaid? I don't know that for sure. What would you think?
I have no clue, because the last thing I ever do is look at insurance, but...
Yeah, okay.
But I'm not sure. Maybe that's why that discrepancy is there.
Yeah. So if that was the case, then what do you think the conclusion here is? This slide is telling you... It's costing large amounts of billions of dollars of money they could not have to spend if they just use a better screening process. Okay, yeah, got it. And then we get into the specifics about healthcare consumerism. So looking at this slide, anything here that is new, anything that needs to be made more clear?
I didn't understand this one, pay my insurance bills. I didn't get that part on that column. I mean, I manage my finances, I pay my insurance bills. I don't even know what that means.
Yeah. So I think they're trying to say, and Margaret, you can help me, but that they would prefer to pay their insurance bill online.
Online, okay.
Rather than mailing in directly a payment, have everything done online.
Yes, I'm going to have to put that word online in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Actually, you might have to put it in most sections. Check my information online. I don't know, maybe because I'm seeing the slide for the first time, but maybe you say online preferences, something like that will sum it up for all of them.
Yeah.
That's what I would put in there. I would put in preferred digital healthcare solution and online, I don't know.
Yeah. So there's some way to be more clear.
Yeah, digital healthcare / online solutions. There you go.
Healthcare / online solutions. And we need the word online here is what you're telling me?
I think so, because I'd be like, what does that mean? But But I get where you're going, but yeah. Like shopping, they shop online, search for a doctor. Everyone's looking for something online nowadays. So instead of putting in every slide, or every section, you might as well put it somewhere on top. Looking at it the first time, I'm like, what does this mean?
Yeah. Okay. Well, and this is a snapshot of how people feel in their preferences, whether they prefer things to be online or not. And I wondered if would trend data add anything more here, or are you happy with the snapshot saying, okay, there's people want it online. It might be more helpful to see a trend.
No, I think it's okay. 70% roughly, right, on average, prefer online solutions.
Okay, got it. And then the next slide here, what did these examples tell you? Is this clear? Anything needs to be made more clear here? And were you familiar with these? Were they new or not?
Yeah, well, I'm not a big fan of the gluten business. I think we've blown this gluten thing, is way out of proportion. Well, part of it may be because a lot of the food is now processed, and God knows what's in there. Even lactose intolerance. I think nowadays, this marketing for gluten and lactose intolerance stuff has gone way out of control to the point that anytime anyone eats something and there's the slightest side effect, now all of a sudden they're intolerant to this and intolerant to that. It may be not because of gluten and or, lactose stuff. It's just the fact that whatever other preservative or additive is in there. For instance, one of my cousins is supposed to be so-called lactose intolerant. Next thing you know, she goes to Italy and she can have coffee with real milk. And have pizza with gluten or whatever with no problem. So I think it's the way food is processed in America. This has become a horrible trend. But I didn't know there was a gluten monitor at all. And I'm not even sure how many people would get that. And if you have a gluten monitor, what do? You put the food in there? Is that what that is?
Oh, I don't know how it works. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't either. We actually thought it was a typo that it was supposed to be glucose monitor, but no, it's actually truly a gluten monitor. I'm going to have to look into that. It's kind of interesting.
You might have to look online.
Look online.
So seeing these examples, Doctor, I'm just wondering, does it make clear the role of these kinds of devices for consumers?
Oh, absolutely. You may want to add, so there is a diabetic monitor that it's like a patch that you stick on your shoulder, and it communicates with your phone and this other gadget, and it injects by itself whenever it wants, whenever it's needed, tracks it on the phone. That would be a monitor if I was a diabetic I would want, because I'd never want to have to worry about what my sugar is and how much I'm going to inject myself with. That is a slide, or that would be a picture. I forget the name of it. But it basically injects as needed. It's fully automated. You don't have to do anything.
What would be the headline on this page? If we were going to add overall, how would you say what this page is telling you?
I would probably put something like automated medical solutions or self-driven automated medical solution, something like that.
Yeah. Because then on the next page we show this. So I want to make sure I was clear. Is this clear? Are these new to you or not? And how does it compare to the prior page?
Well, this is all cardiac compared to the last one. So it's I would say cardiac rhythm detecting consumer services. I understand the focalization, but I think there's a lot of other rhythms we can uncover which can help. For example, even pauses. We have a lot of people coming with dizziness. If you're able to find out a pause at that time, that answers your question. In terms of me knowing what the device, the only one I've seen is the AliveCore Cardia Mobile thing. I don't think I've seen the watch. I haven't seen ECG check. But again, this will be awareness for people who go out there and look for these things. I always tell people this is a good Christmas gift.
Ah, right. So on this slide, if you see this and you see all these different ones, what are you thinking when you realize, there's like 6 of these, or what does it make you think?
I'm trying to think which is the most user-friendly one. Like the bottom right one, that looks pretty bulky. I don't know how that works. the heel force. That looks like something that doesn't look user friendly and something that you want to carry around. Whereas the watch and all the others, I think the bottom right and the bottom left looks a little difficult to take around with you, but the top three and the middle two look good.
Mm-hmm. And then we have this slide that shows the Apple Watch, and when you see this, you're thinking
the iWorld for rhythm management. The iWorld for rhythm management.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and are you seeing with any of your patients in your area use of the Apple Watch for this yet? Or?
No. Did this watch just come out recently?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fairly.
Yeah, I've heard people talk about it, but again, I'm in a rural place. There's people barely even wear a watch, so I mean, I don't. This by the time, I mean, young folks will get this stuff, but the older ones probably not.
Well, then on each of these slides in the last section, I really want to understand, if there's anything new here and if there's anything that needs to be made more clear in any way.
So there's not new, but for a non-medical person, you probably have to tell what class and level means, at least briefly.
Mm-hmm. What these mean, okay.
Because even for an engineer, they will not know what that means. They won't imagine A is good and 1 is good is what I would imagine, but, 2B is not too bad either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So level of indication. So I guess the question is, it says European Society of Cardiology. What are the Americans saying?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, right, tell me about that. If we start with the European, we don't really have anything in here from the American Society of Cardiology. We do have on the next slide some things about the U.S. How does that relate or not?
Yeah, this is good. Hold on a second. What is USPSTF? Task Force of some sort?
Margaret, do you want to address that?
Yes. I'll pull back up. I'm trying to remember exactly what it is. United States Preventative. I'll look and see exactly what that is. But there really aren't. To your point, there's really not. Our guidelines the Europeans are always a little bit ahead of us. From where we are. So, we are a little bit behind for them in regards to diagnosing to be able to have something like that. Doctor, let me look it up really quick. I should have that in my notes somewhere, but it just escapes me. I had a moment. Give me just a second.
But usually the Americans follow. I mean, you can say something like, although this is a European-based data, the U.S. data may not be that far.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's the United States Preventative Services Task Force.
Oh, okay. There you go. But I cannot not imagine that as you get older, the incidence of AFib is higher and higher just because of worsening valvular disease and worsening structural disease that goes along with heart disease, valvular disease. So I can't imagine the U.S. population is any different, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. So when you see this slide that tells about the U.S. Part, what's the impact of the recommendation when it has inadequate evidence, as they mentioned? I wondered if that would make you want to screen, not screen, or wait for more information.
Oh, of course, yeah. This leads you to remember the more screening that happens, the higher the incidence will be. The more you look, the more you'll find.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, as you think about this slide, tell me how you're thinking about what you read here, like where it says screening test, the USPSTF found inadequate evidence to assess whether screening identifies, etc. When you read that, you're thinking,
I'm thinking that there's no risk or harm to screen, and when you have such a percentage of patients being undiagnosed with AFib, why not use a screening tool to uncover all these undiagnosed AFib? We have the modality, we're not using it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We have multiple modalities, actually.
And how do you feel about inclusion of this information within the presentation?
think it's good. If you're going to use this slide in itself, I think we'll try to make it less wordy. You could say something like 65-year-old older American population, and that gets rid of like a few words there. That's all. It could be less wordy. Maybe you can.
And I just wanted to make sure I understood how people would feel about including this information when we use the phrase inadequate evidence. And you said it was good because what's the reason you still would want to have this in here?
Yeah, that may be a turnoff. But that's just one task force. I can't imagine, without reading it in its entirety. That that might be the worst thing.
Yeah, so for you, if you saw this page, what do you think the impact would be for you? What would it make you do? Would you tend to...
Well, knowing what I know about what we don't know about it, it'll be like, I don't believe that. But
I believe it.
Like in the sense, I don't think there's inadequate evidence. I think there's enough adequate evidence to assess whether screening, with EKGs or whatever, you should be able to get a high incidence if you. I don't quite understand that part.
Okay, all right. And then we had this slide. Anything new here? Anything that could be made more clear here?
No, this is pretty good. So you got what is that? I think that's Australian on the bottom, I guess, and then there's European. Okay, those are the authors. Yeah, no, this is good. I think I'll leave this the way it is.
You leave it the way it is, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then on this slide, we show two charts, and I wanted to understand, is anything here need to be made more clear? Is it working or not? And is there anything new here?
No, this is good. This is a good one here.
Okay. And then we're almost to the end of this, but this one, we show again two studies. Was this new to you or not?
I think the seventh, I didn't think there would be that much. Yeah, what is new here for me, I guess, is a drastic jump between over 65 and 75, 76.
Mm-hmm.
Is that accurate, 75 to 76, just 1 year apart? What did you mean to say 75 to 80 or something? No, 65 to...
Address that, I think probably it was 75 to 76. Is that correct?
It was 75 to 76. So they were very specific in the patients in that age group, as opposed to the study on the left was patients over 65. So yes, it was specific to patients that were 75 to 76 years old.
Okay, all right. Because I just saw it 1 year apart, so.
Yeah, it seems a little, it's like very tight, but that in itself with their age puts them, with the CHA2DS2-VASc score. And so, yeah, they were very specific in getting those patients at that age group.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is this slide clear, Doctor? Does anything need to be changed on this one?
No, that's good. Otherwise.
Okay, and then this was the last one we showed you. Is this slide clear, and is anything here new to you?
I guess my question is the dementia part and how it relates. Is that from like something like multi-infarct dementia or something? Is that where they were going with that?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that question. That's a good question. If we can take that down from the reference, I can pull the reference from that. But to your point, the 2 times risk increase of dementia could, like you said, from, did they have TIAs that led to dementia, or just the increased risk because of, lack of, circulatory and other issues and everything else that it relates into, and that it goes into, like I said, 2 times the risk of sudden cardiac death as well, too. So that's good to bring that up as something that we would need to make sure that we pulled out. So yes, thank you for.
Yeah, I would change to increased risk of multi-infarct dementia, because that's a real thing.
Okay. And doctor, what would you say, thinking of the whole presentation, what are the most important, most compelling parts for you?
Most compelling part is, well, the biggest topics, well, the one is the cost of not diagnosing AFib and what that means to society and, healthcare payers. Secondly is awareness and how much of unawareness is there about AFib. And last but not least is the long-term medical implications of diagnosing AFib or not diagnosing AFib, and how some of those can be detrimental, let alone lethal.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel there were any parts of this information that was presented that you would leave out, that they weren't that important?
No, what do we have, 14 slides? Is that what it was?
Something like that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's enough. Yeah, I think in its entirety it's good. It's good.
Yeah. So for you, what would be the net effect? What has this left you thinking?
How do we find ways to implement a better screening program at every level, whether it be in the doctor's office, whether it be in the local mall, whether it be in any other healthcare setting, or implemented wherever patients are waiting for a service that doesn't have to be medicine, related.
Do you think this data would ideally be shared by an MSL or by a sales rep or some other way?
No, I think sales people can. Some of this attests to what real-world effects of data. Everyone's into this real-world thing. You got trials, which are, they're kind of designed in such a way. And then now they talk about real-world stuff. So, a lot of this is real-world data as well, which is incorporated in there. So you got a little bit of data and real-world stuff in there. So that's good.
And if you think about your ideal presenter, is it someone who is more like a medically focused liaison like Margaret, or your regular sales rep that you see regularly? Assuming you do. Which of those is a better presenter for this?
I think you need Margaret.
Margaret.
Yeah. No, because there's people out there, I've met a lot of different kind of reps that are not able to answer questions outside the box or circle, whatever you want to call it.
Understand.
And all it takes sometimes for a provider or a recipient listening to this to so-called buy in is ask you that one question, you say, I don't know, but I can look into it and send you an email. Nobody wants to hear that.
Got it. Well, and as you think about the ideal clinician type or specialty you think this data would resonate with, who would you think is the ideal specialty to receive this?
Neurologists, primarily. Obviously, cardiology. If I was to rank them, obviously cardiology would be one, and then there will be the neurologist, and then primary care to some degree after.
And what amount of time do you think is appropriate to see a deck like this? How long should it take?
I don't think this should take you more than 15 minutes.
Yeah, okay. Well, and I just want to show you one last quick thing, which would be like the cover of this presentation, and obviously would want to cover that people would understand and that would interest them. So I've got 3 that I just quickly want to show you, and they're going to come up right here. So here's one. It's J, code J. I also have code L, and I have code M. So I'd like to know for each of those what it communicates. Look, if you look at this one, code M, what does this communicate or make you think of?
I think it's good. The question is changing course of what? You want to kind of make it I don't know. I know the second line attests to it, but how about changing life in 30 seconds?
Changing life in 30 seconds. Okay, yeah. And then here is L. If you see this one, what does this make you think of?
like something out of the X-Men, but let me see.
It looks like the X-Men.
Predictive power. Yeah, I think I like that one.
What is the main message of this one? What does it communicate?
Cardioembolic stroke.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say.
Okay. And then here's the last one, J. What does this one communicate? What does it make you think of?
Yeah, I mean, this is good too. I can't say one is better than the. I mean, one obviously looks futuristic, the one prior to this. But this looks more medically oriented at a glance. That one looks a little futuristic. The other one, you kind of have to read it to kind of understand, I think.
So medically oriented, what makes this look medically oriented? Is it?
Again, a little bit of bias because I'm in it.
Yeah.
Because it gets to the heart of the matter. You know, predicting stroke in 30 seconds, like bingo. It is what it is, right away. And you know, it's medically real. I don't know. I guess it looks more of a real heart than the other one.
Oh, more like a real heart. Okay. So if we think about the three, which would seem like it best fits with the presentation? This one is J. Here's L. Here's M. Which best?
Okay. I think the way you had it is I think J1 and the last one second, the middle one third.
And if you think about us trying to encourage people to want to hear the presentation, if you came in and you saw this, which of these three covers would most likely make you want to hear the presentation?
I think this one, M.
M would make you want to hear the presentation?
Yeah, because it makes you curious. It's not screaming AFib or stroke right away, although then you're like, well, that's the brain, and that means, you know.
Makes you curious from the picture or the words?
The picture.
Because when you look at that picture, you're thinking of what? How are you interpreting that?
Yeah, so, well, you don't know what to interpret. The second and third makes you intrigued as to what does this talk about. Then you slowly go to read it a little bit and figure it, I guess, but to make you want to quickly say, wow, that's really good.
If Margaret walked in and she showed you this versus if she walked in and she showed you that, you would expect something different or not? What would you expect?
Jay would be like, okay, this is going to be another medical talk. Because it looks medically oriented. These two, the second and third are more like, what is this? Is this new cutting edge information? Is this new cutting edge technology?
Got it. Great. Well, I think you've answered all of our questions. Let me just check, Margaret. Did you have anything else you really needed to ask the doctor?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you.
Doctor, thank you so much. We learned so much from you. I made tons of notes. Really appreciate your time today.
Oh, you're welcome. Hopefully that helped you guys.
Very, very helpful. Thank you so much and have a good rest of the day.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.